So before I talk about this segment, I've got to plug my latest video, which is available on Patreon now to all of my patrons. They'll get early access to a half-hour documentary that I worked on, which was all about how every Doctor actor was announced, from William Hartnell up to Joe Martin, from 1963 to 2020. That was a big project to work on. It's currently making its way through the Content ID system, so hopefully it will be able to be viewable on YouTube before the 14th Doctor is announced. My fingers are firmly crossed, but if you want to help support the channel, patrons can view it straight away. Check it all out. But in the meanwhile, because of the time that has elapsed since Jodie Whittaker was announced to be leaving back in July 2021, it has officially been like 200 plus days since it was announced that she was leaving, and there's no news of 14, which means that this is officially the longest time that fans have had to wait between announcements. I think between Jon Pertwee and Tom Baker, it was a single week. Like, that's just not the case anymore in terms of many announcements. For David Tennant, it was a couple of months before Matt Smith was announced. So what we've got now is a massive wait, and fans and the media are really anticipating an announcement. We've had rumours of David Tennant, we've had rumours of Lydia West, we've had rumours of Ollie Alexander, and now my old enemy, the Plymouth Herald, Doctor Who new Doctor Harry Hill joke tweet fools, quote, gullible fans, Elliot from the Plymouth Herald, my arch rival. So this story is basically Rebecca TV, who is a legend on Twitter. She tweeted, as someone who actually knows who is the next Doctor is, as I overheard Russell T Davies talking about it openly in big Cardiff Tesco's, I must say I'm really excited but also disappointed he's chosen this role over another series of TV burp. Over 1.2k likes on the tweet, and this Plymouth Herald article is basically how people thought it might have been real. And finally, this person thought The Sun would be the first to run this article. Puffed. I think you mean Plymouth Live. They commented, just waiting for The Sun to pick this up and run with it. They know what they're doing. They know that this is... As if this is where we're at now, in terms of Doctor announcements. Oh, a couple of people were possibly fooled by a viral tweet in the Doctor Who community. Get out of here. Anyway, the big rumour from this past week is that Hugh Grant, actor, icon, probably most well known for films such as Love Actually. He was award nominated for Florence Foster Jenkins. He was the villain in Paddington 2, and of course he is technically kind of Doctor Who alumni. He was the handsome Doctor from 1999's Curse of Fatal Death. It had Rowan Atkinson regenerating into Hugh Grant, into Richard E. Grant, to Jim Broadbent, to Joanna Lumley. So he is officially kind of maybe Doctor Who alumni. But this has gotten a lot of traction. This was like front page news on many tabloids because, you know, there's a lot of stuff happening in the UK at the moment that they kind of want to make sure that those stories are not on the front page. Let's throw Hugh Grant on there instead. Hugh Grant tipped to be new Doctor Who in Marvel-style makeover for Hit Show. This is a write-up on The Mirror by Emma Pryor, a senior writer at The Mirror. Doctor Who may be heading for a Marvel-style makeover with Hugh Grant piloting the TARDIS, says a TV insider. Showrunner Russell T Davies has taken back control of the sci-fi series in time for its 60th anniversary in 2023. The insider says Davies is keen for the Four Weddings and a Funeral star, who's 61, to bring a fresh feel to the role. They added, he offers many attributes. Great actor, British, award-winning, Hollywood A-lister, and excellent at comedy. Conversations are in progress. Davies has also said he wants to expand the Doctor's horizons. The insider said, the vision is that the show can be a Marvel-like product, building franchises around the Doctor and other key characters in his many lives. Davies is said to be backed by BBC Worldwide Commercial and Sony Pictures TV, which bought a majority stake in Wolf Studios, which makes the show. The source added, with the utmost respect to the BBC, in the past attempts like Torchwood, they were made on a very limited budget on location around Wales. Now the world is Russell's oyster. So, here's the thing about this one. Now, the fact that we've had so many so-and-so has been confirmed as the Doctor stories over the past 6-ish months means that this one is, in this context, just another one to throw onto the pile. However, this one is kind of pseudo-credible. One, because this is The Mirror, and while this is not exactly the same writer, this is Emma Pryor, it does come from the same tabloid, the same publication, that did break the news that Jodie Whittaker would be leaving the show back in January 2021, 6 to 7 months before the announcement was made official. That writer was Nicola Methven, so same outlet but different writer, so take that however you want to in terms of, is this a credible rumour? However, this could also compound on top of the other rumours that next year is going to be a series of anniversary specials before the 14th Doctor is announced. But if this was the case, I think that this story would be framed slightly differently. I think it would be making reference to Hugh Grant could be part of a lineup of alternative different Doctors for 2023. But this one is saying, more or less, it doesn't officially say 14th Doctor. The wording, or the lack of wording in this case, means that there's a lot of wiggle room. Because there's so much wiggle room, I'm not inclined to wholly throw my hat behind it. So when it comes to the rest of the story, whether this is meant to be framed now as Doctor Who wanting to become a Marvel-like production, I completely see that. I think that what will happen is that when Doctor Who comes back in 2023 or 2024, depending on when the full proper series comes out, next year could be specials, the year after could be a proper series, I think the BBC and Bad Wolf will want to get one series under their belt before expanding the universe outward, very similarly to what they did in 2005. Torchwood and the Sarah Jane Adventures were not greenlit until Series 1 was done and Series 2 was well into production, so that they could start sowing those seeds in Series 2. They want to make sure, yes, not only are we back, but the show is a hit, the show will justify the resources to spin-offs. I don't think a show in Doctor Who's current states, like Series 12 and Series 13, still ranked really high in terms of the weekly ratings, still did well, relatively speaking, in terms of viewing figures, but I don't think it did well enough to justify, here's a Fugitive Doctor spin-off, here's a Master spin-off, here's like a side series with a Shad or something, these different kinds of spin-offs. I don't think that the current run, outside of Series 11, justified that success, but if it comes back with Russell T Davies under Bad Wolf, makes a big splash, then it starts looking outwards for different spin-off material. What type of spin-off material, though? It's so early to say. It's way too early to say, because we don't know what Russell's got planned for the show. Thari says, I also believe Hugh worked with Rusty Davies on A Very English Scandal, so they have a prior working relationship, and I believe he was considered for the role in 2005, so this kind of adds up for me, to be honest. Oh, he was considered for the role back in 1996. He was on that list of names, along with John Hurt, Peter Capaldi, and Christopher Eccleston. He was on that list that inevitably went to Paul McGann in 96. He's been in the ringer for a long time. And also Hugh Grant. While I don't know, of course, what he's like as a person, I've not really looked into him too much, he seems like the type of guy who, yeah, I'd be up for doing Doctor Who, because he was in Curse of Fatal Death. That sort of tongue-in-cheek nature, like, he's kind of on board with it, I imagine, although that was over 20 years ago. Things could have phenomenally changed. My big concern, though, is that I don't think the BBC can afford Hugh Grant for several seasons. People have been saying, oh, it's Sony's money, it's Bad Wolf's money. Yes and no, because Bad Wolf is going to be making the show, BBC will be funding and distributing the show, will be broadcasting the show. Bad Wolf will be allocated X amount of money, and then that will be sent to them, and then they'll make the show. Bad Wolf and Sony, to an extent, can then pay out of their own pocket for extra expenses, for extra resources, for extra budget, but that doesn't look good when you're balancing the books and trying to explain that to shareholders at the end of the year. And I also think there's a reason why every Doctor, correct me if I'm wrong, every Doctor, with the exception of John Hurt, has been a predominantly TV actor, who might have dabbled in some films, but predominantly worked in TV, because Hugh Grant is I think he's an Oscar nominee, maybe an Oscar winner, I can't remember. I think he was nominated for Florence Foster Jenkins, and that was only a couple of years ago. His profile is still pretty high, relatively speaking. He's not going to be cheap. He might say, oh, I'm doing it for Russell T Davies, I'm doing it for Doctor Who, I'll take a reduced rate, but I don't know. Zero Cav says John Hurt wasn't, was he? Firstly, that was a one-off thing. And John Hurt was like a star of stage and screen for 50 years? Like, blockbuster icon, like Harry Potter, Alien, Elephant Man, list goes on and on. So I also think that they might not want to go with an actor as old like, the BBC are funding the show, they will still have some sort of creative input. Hugh Grant is a massive name, who I think might bring in a big audience, but is that the audience that they want Doctor Who to have? And also, considering the physical toll that it has on the actors working on it. Like, Jodie Whittaker and Christopher Eccleston, I think, are the only actors who have worked on the show to have not required, like, leg or ankle surgery because of how difficult it was for the role. So, after what happened with Peter Capaldi as well, not Capaldi's fault, I think a lot of that comes to the public perception of the stories as well. I think that the BBC might want to avoid an actor who's over 45, who's over 50, unless it was for a John Hurt-esque, let's have an older one-off Doctor. Kieran Evans says, would he want to be tied down for 3 series? And that's the thing. Hugh Grant is a big name who could take any offer he wants at the moment, yeah? Does he want to live in Wales for 3 years, or 4 years, 5 years? If they're not able to do yearly series. Jodie Whittaker has done 3 series over the span of 5 years because they haven't been able to do the 13 series, the 13 episodes over 9 months that they did back in 2005 through to 2015. I think the reason this rumour has picked up so much credence and so much speculation is, one, the British tabloids really need a distraction right now, and 2, it's semi-credible. Also, this has been a big aspect of the conversation right now. I'd like to thank Kid Flash for the $4.99 super chat.
Wonderful chap. All of them.
I feel like if they do make Hugh Grant the next Doctor, people will think a female Doctor was a mistake, right? Now, I think that is going to be a big factor in Russell T Davies's casting decision. Because ultimately, him and Bad Wolf and the BBC, they'll all have proportional influence in that casting. And Russell T Davies is going to have a lot of sway in that room. First things first, he's about 7 foot tall. You don't say no to Russell T Davies unless you want, like, a Looney Tunes style, I will hammer you into the ground type skit, okay? But I think that Russell T Davies understands the optics of first female Doctor. There's the public perception, even if it's not wholly borne out in the reality and the data and the numbers, that the viewing figures are stagnating and that it's floundering. I think he also understands the political optics of maybe we shouldn't cast another cis white guy. Now, if they do cast another cis white guy, I'm not going to be bent out of shape about it, okay? I'm sure I'll trust Russell T Davies's judgment in that. But I will personally find it a little bit disappointing. I won't be like ranting and raving on Twitter. I won't write off the actor. I won't go into it with skepticism. But I do think that optically, if Jodie Whittaker is not succeeded by another female Doctor or an actor of colour or someone who does not fit into the straight white male archetype, then Jodie Whittaker could be the only divergent casting Doctor for the foreseeable future, and I think that would be disappointing. It would also be really, really limiting in terms of the show's, like, future and its longevity. Royally Scrambled, did you not trust Rusty Davis's judgment for Love and Monsters? Everyone gets a mulligan. Everyone gets a mulligan, okay, at some point. Chris Chibnall deserves mulligans. Stephen Moffat deserves mulligans. Rusty Davies deserves them. It's going to happen when you're making that much TV year in, year out. And even then, Love and Monsters has had something of a public renaissance in the fandom. People, a newfound appreciation, especially considering that now Victor Kennedy is meant to have been based off Ian Levine. Darius says it should go to the best actor for the role regardless of gender. Once again, this is a framework that views the situation as if we're already living in an ideal world, and we're not living in an ideal world. We're living in a world that meritocracies cannot exist by the nature of how the world functions, of how platforms are given to people, or how people are able to break into these industries, and the exposure that they get. I understand that sounds like it's the right answer, but that's not how the industry works. Because if you were to say we just want the best actor for the job, you're going to get Meryl Streep and Daniel Day-Lewis for the role, of course, if that is somehow the formula for the best actor. Oh, but now you can't afford Daniel Day-Lewis or Meryl Streep, or maybe they don't want to do it, or maybe they're not available. And then all of these other factors hit like cascade, like dominoes, and then the whole get the best actor for the role. The argument falls apart once it's exposed to oxygen, once it's exposed to sunlight, once the reality test makes it through. Dari says, I agree with everything you are saying, although I do take issue with people online going after actors for who they are. It happened with John Bishop. Yeah, it did happen with John Bishop, and yeah, no time for it. In the bin. Those people get in the bin, okay? There will be a part of me a little bit disappointed, but I'm sure that when the Doctor does come out of the TARDIS, or they have their I am the Doctor moment in the first few episodes, all of those fears will be quashed or go away. I'll still be a little bit disappointed. I get the disappointment, but of course, John Bishop was just doing a job. Whoever plays the next Doctor will also be doing a job. Like, yeah, don't take it out on them. They are, like, have you seen the gig economy at the moment? High Voltage with an £8.99 super chat. Thank you so much for the generous super chat. Massively appreciate it.
Wonderful chap. All of them.
I'd prefer it if it was an unknown actor, to be honest. I think a big name lead would overshadow the actual role. I'd love to get Darker Doctor like Seven as well. Yeah, I think that there's a great balance where you can have a name like David Tennant, who was a rising star circa 2005. He'd done a couple of high-profile TV projects, but no one knew who David Tennant was in 2005. I say no one. Like, you know what I mean. Someone who is present in the industry, but who hasn't really flourished yet. I think that's the way to go. Someone like Lydia West, I think, might be maybe a bigger name than David Tennant was back in 2005. Obviously, how success is gauged is very different now than it was years ago. For example, like, you've got social media and you've got so many platforms working at the moment. You've got so much, so many different broadcasters and so many different outlets and streaming services that you'll have so many more big names, so much higher profiles. So exactly what constitutes an unknown actor or an undiscovered actor, the criteria has massively changed over the past 20 years, absolutely. But you've also got, say, like your John Pertwee's from the 70s, where he was in his 50s, or I believe, or late 40s, and he was a big comedic name. He'd done a lot of comedy, and then all of a sudden he takes a much darker role. Like Sylvester McCoy as well. He was known as like a children's actor, a children's entertainer, and then he's one of the Darker Doctors. I like the sort of subversion on the public perception. If you were to cast a Hugh Grant, you'd want him to subvert the archetype, the public persona that he has, which is why I think Paddington 2 worked so well. He's really leaning into the perception of himself as an actor and as a personality, as a performance. I think that's why that villain role is so fun. Same for Nicole Kidman in the first Paddington film. But with Hugh Grant, you sort of get the dancing, the swaggering, the cheeky smile, the womanizer. Like, that's the sort of vibe you get with Hugh Grant. And if he's going to be playing the 14th Doctor or a Doctor, I would like him to subvert that role. Aidan Woodhead in the chat, Eccleston is probably the perfect subversion so far. In regards to his comedy, he never did comedy before Doctor Who. It was one of the reasons he was so interested in taking the role. He wanted to challenge himself. But he did fit the expectation upon him that it was going to be a more serious, more grounded and dramatic series. That's not a bad thing, of course. You don't have to have Eccleston in a clown outfit, of course. You don't need that. But yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to gauge it without the confirmation, and then we can start letting the imagination run wild. For now, this is just a story, a rumor. I think it's semi-credible, but that's it. You just kind of have to wait and see, really. Hey, so I'm recording this epilogue the day after I did the live stream, and it turns out that shortly after I went offline, Hugh Grant did address the rumours about him being cast in Doctor Who. He took to his Twitter, @HackedOffHugh, and for some reason he posted a response to the Guardian article talking about his rumours about being in Doctor Who, as opposed to the Mirror, which actually broke the story, but that's neither here nor there. He says, "Nothing against Dr. W, but I'm not. No idea where this story came from." So I think with this we can kind of maybe infer that this rumour is bunk, unless he's taken the Andrew Garfield approach of deniability. I've approached Joanna Lumley, Richard E. Grant and Jim Broadbent for comment, but none of them have got back in touch with me.